She handed me divorce papers on Christmas Day while her entire family applauded. They thought I'd break. Instead, I gave her a silver-wrapped gift, filled with proof of her betrayal, her affair with her sister's husband, and a trail of lies that would burn her world to the ground. But what none of them knew was that gift was only the beginning. I never thought silence could be so loud until the moment. She slid that red envelope across the dinner table. Christmas Day. Twinkling lights wrapped around the banister like candy. Canes, a scent of pine needles and cinnamon drifted through the house, blending with the buttery richness of baked ham and fresh dinner rolls. Eggnog shimmered in crystal glasses. Carols hummed low in the background. Nat King Cole crooning. From a hidden speaker, Stephanie's mother raised a glass, toasting to family and blessings, her voice a practiced sweetness. Her brother Darren laughed too hard at his joke, and Stephanie, my wife, smiled with her teeth, but not her eyes, as she pushed the red envelope toward me like it was a Hallmark card. I looked at her. She didn't blink. Neither did I. My fingers unfolded the flaps slowly. Paper crinkled, one glance, and the warmth, the glitter, the fake affection collapsed into a single, frigid moment. Divorce papers. No warning. No fight. No tearful nights filled with emotional distance. Just this. Then it happened. Applause. Her entire family started clapping. Polite, restrained, almost celebratory. Like they had pulled off a surprise party and were waiting for me to laugh. To get the joke ID in single quotes T. Instead, I smiled. I looked at Stephanie, then her mother, then Darren, then back at the envelope. My jaw unclenched as I placed the papers gently beside my plate, next to the untouched roasted potatoes. I reached for my wine, took a measured sip, and leaned in slightly. She mirrored me. "Merry Christmas," she whispered. "You should open your gift," I whispered back. She paused. That's when the mask slipped the faintest twitch in her cheek. She hadn't expected me to bring a gift. She assumed this day was hers. Her triumph, her reckoning. She was wrong. We met 10 years ago, college sweethearts. Stephanie was an undergrad in public health, and I was buried in case law and outlines as a second-year law student. She had a sharp laugh and a magnetic pull, the kind of energy that made the room orbit her. I was quiet, strategic, the type who watched more than he spoke, a mind built for chess, not poker. The future lay out like blueprints. I didn't believe in soulmates or fate. I believed in logic, in planning. Stephanie made me believe in other things. Warmth, family, a home, so I built her one. We got married in the fall. I bought us a 3-bedroom colonial in the suburbs of New Haven. I grew my practice. I paid for her grad school. I navigated late nights, Sunday brunches, with her insufferable family. I smiled through Darren's smug jokes and my mother's constant critiques. I made her world stable. We were golden, or so I thought. Then the little things started. A new password on her phone. Late nights with the girls. Laughter died when I entered the room. Conversations that shifted like smoke. At first, I doubted myself. Maybe it was work stress. Maybe the spark just faded. But I'm a lawyer. I deal in evidence, not instinct. So I started collecting it. A second credit card she didn't tell me about. Charges for hotels I never stayed in. Designer colognes I never wore. Restaurants I'd never been to. A bank transfer to an unknown account. Then Darren started acting differently, too friendly, too supportive. Like a man overcorrecting for guilt. Still, I said nothing instead. I hired a private investigator. The day the photos arrived, I sat alone in my office. My phone buzzed. The email had a single attachment. Stephanie and Darren, holding hands, kissing, walking into a hotel room, staying overnight. Again and again. I didn't get angry. I got focused. The next several months became my quiet storm. I documented everything: timestamps, expenses, hotel receipts, bank records, and GPS logs. I created a digital archive on an encrypted drive. Every conversation, every password reset, every flirty email she thought was deleted. I had it. In our state, adultery still mattered. So did financial misconduct. I was laying the groundwork for a legal reckoning. Stephanie had no idea. I moved assets into a trust under my sister's name, rewrote my will, sold my stake in a commercial property, and funneled the cash through layered accounts. Transferred ownership of our house to my sister in a quitclaim deed. All of it is legally sound, all of it untraceable to her. Then I waited. Back to Christmas, the clapping died. All eyes were on me, expecting rage, a meltdown, something. But I was calm. I slid the red envelope into my coat pocket and gestured with my chin to a small silver box under the tree with Stephanie's name on it. She hesitated, confused. Her smile faltered. Her fingers moved slowly as she picked it up. The ribbon untied. The lid lifted. Her world stopped. Inside, a thick stack of glossy photographs. Her and Darren, candid, incriminating. Beneath that, printed bank statements, hotel receipts, and at the bottom, a small black USB. Her hand trembled. She didn't look at me. She didn't have to. Her mother gasped. Her father choked on his drink. Darren's face drained. I rose slowly, adjusted my tie. "I figured you wouldn't want me to open your gift in front of everyone," I said, tone cool, practiced. "But I wanted you to open mine." Stephanie looked up, lips parted, voice barely audible. "You can't." I can, I interrupted, eyes narrowing. And I will. I turned to her parents. Did you know your daughter's been having an affair with her sister's husband? 8 months? That she used our joint accounts to fund their little rendezvous? Darren stood, blustering. Look man, you might want to lawyer up. I cut him off. You used company funds for some of those trips. That's embezzlement. I've already sent a package to your employer? More gasps. I looked back at Stephanie. I'll be filing tomorrow. On the grounds of adultery, with full supporting documentation. She started to shake. UWOULDN? Single quotes T. You handed me divorce papers on Christmas Day, I said, in front of your family, while they applauded. I turned to her mother. She's going to need a place to stay. Maybe with you, once the court grants me full ownership and a clean exit. Stephanie collapsed onto the couch, colorless, defeated. I walked to the door, pulled on my coat, then turned one last time. Merry Christmas. The cold bit my skin as I stepped outside. I slid into my car, closed the door, and sat for a moment, breathing. Not angry, not sad, just free. All those years I played the devoted husband. Turns out I'm better at being the quiet storm. And when you hand a man like me divorced papers on Christmas Day, you better pray he didn't bring a gift. But I did, and it was wrapped in truth. Bow and all. The morning after Christmas, the snow still blanketed the neighborhood like nothing had happened. But inside that house, everything had changed. Stephanie hadn't slept. Her mascara-streaked eyes stared blankly at the pile of photos still scattered on the coffee table. Her mother sat beside her, stunned and silent, and her father, normally a gruff, unshakable man, hadn't spoken a word since midnight. Darren had left sometime around 2 a.m., slipped out the back door. Coward. Meanwhile, I was sipping black coffee at my sister's place, where I had driven after I left. Sarah greeted me with a half smile and an arched brow as I walked in. So, you finally dropped the match. I didn't respond. Just handed her the papers, my copies of everything Stephanie had signed unknowingly. Sarah scanned them with clinical precision. She signed all of it. She never read them. Trusted me. Sarah snorted. That's the thing about manipulators. They never expect to be outplayed. I spent the rest of the morning going through the final filings. My lawyer Victor was already prepping the case. We had a court date scheduled before the end of January, and with the evidence I had, the outcome was practically guaranteed. Still, I knew Stephanie wouldn't go down without trying to spin the narrative. And I was right. By the afternoon, I got a call from a local blogger. They'd received an anonymous tip. I was emotionally abusive, controlling, and had orchestrated the Christmas reveal as a form of psychological revenge. Victor laughed when I told him, classic gaslighting. Don't worry. The timestamps on the photos, the receipts, the PIs, report it, all lines up. Let her try. But I wasn't worried about the internet. I was worried about what Stephanie might still be hiding, and I had a reason. That evening, I received a voicemail from a blocked number. The voice was distorted but clear enough. You think it's over? You don't know what she's done. Ask her about Blue Harbor. Ask her about the cabin. My pulse slowed. That name meant something. Blue Harbor. It was a lakeside retreat Stephanie had visited twice during our marriage, for so-called girls' weekends. I pulled up my archived GPS logs. She hadn't gone alone, and Darren wasn't the only man she met there. I didn't sleep that night. Blue Harbor. The name wouldn't leave my mind. It gnawed at the edges of my thoughts like a loose thread on an expensive suit. A place I'd never been, but a name she had mentioned twice, maybe 3 times during our marriage. Girls' weekend? She'd always said, but there was something rehearsed about the way she said it. Something to clean. Now. It felt radioactive. I pulled up the GPS logs from those weekends and cross-referenced them with phone records. She hadn't just visited Blue Harbor. She had stayed overnight at a secluded cabin miles from the main lodge. The pie had missed it, maybe because I hadn't known to ask about that particular trip. But the logs were there, clear, documented. There was another number listed repeatedly during those weekends. Not Darren's. A different one. Blocked, but not untraceable. I called Victor. Run this number. Quietly. I need to know who it belongs to. He didn't ask questions. That's why I kept him on retainer. The next day, Stephanie's face was all over a niche gossip blog under the headline, Christmas Chaos. Local power couple implodes in infidelity scandal. Her attempt to control the narrative had backfired. Instead of making me look like the villain, people were dissecting the leaked affair timeline. Internet detectives were vicious, and Darren's professional reputation began crumbling in real time. His company issued a press statement by noon, announcing an internal investigation. Still, she hadn't reached out until 4:17 p.m. A message. Stephanie, we need to talk alone. No lawyers. No family, just you and me. 1 hour. Blue Harbor, the cabin. You know which one? I stared at the screen. She didn't know I'd already uncovered it. Didn't know that her web of lies was unraveling faster than she could tie it up, I replied, with one word. Fine. Blue Harbor was silent under a thick blanket of snow when I pulled into the gravel drive that evening. The sun had dipped behind the trees, casting long shadows over the frozen lake. The cabin looked exactly like the GPS logs had described, secluded, rustic, isolated, too perfect for secrets. She was waiting on the porch, wrapped in a white coat that didn't match her expression. "You came," she said, like she wasn't sure I would. "Of course I did," I replied. "You said no lawyers. But you didn't say no recording." She flinched. "Gavin, please." Inside, the fire crackled. She had wine poured already 2 glasses. I didn't touch mine. She sat across from me. And then, just like that, she dropped the act. "There's something you don't know," she whispered. "There's a lot I know," I said evenly. "But go on. It wasn't just Darren. That cabin Blue Harbor, it wasn't what you think." She took a breath. "His name is Nolan Wexler. He's a lobbyist. Very connected. We met at a fundraiser years ago. Before things got twisted. Nolan offered me a consulting position. That's what the weekends were for. At first, planning, strategy, but then it got physical and complicated. I stayed silent. Let her speak, let her dig. He's dangerous, Gavin. He keeps things. Photos, messages. He said if I ever crossed him, he'd destroy me on you. He's the one who left that voicemail. I didn't know until this morning. He thinks you're a threat now." I leaned forward. "Why now? Why Christmas?" Her voice trembled, because I thought if I got ahead of it, filed first, I could protect myself. "I didn't know you'd fight back like this." The vulnerability in her tone was new, almost convincing. "Almost, you used our marriage as currency," I said coldly. "And now you're surprised the market turned on you." She shook her head. "You don't get it. Nolan's not finished. If he thinks you have anything on him emails, names, he'll come after you. He doesn't use lawyers, he uses leverage." I stood. "Good thing I know how to play that game." Her eyes widened. "You don't know what you're doing? I know exactly what I'm doing. And now, I know exactly who to target." As I walked out, my phone buzzed. A single message from Victor. Wexler confirmed. "Financial trail leads to 3 shell companies, 1 offshore. It's bigger than Stephanie, much bigger." I didn't reply. Instead, I smiled. The trap wasn't for me. It was for them, and they just stepped into it. The courtroom smelled of varnished oak and cold coffee. The kind of room built to contain truth and lies in equal measure. I sat at the plaintiff's table, hands steepled, watching Stephanie across the aisle. Her lawyers, 3 of them, whispered frantically, flipping through thick binders as if somewhere in those pages was a miracle. Their WASN single quotes T. Victor leaned in. "Judge Rollins is old school. Stick to facts. Don't chase drama." I nodded. That was never the plan anyway. Stephanie looked thinner. Makeup couldn't hide the sleepless nights. She met my eyes once, briefly, then looked away. Her strategy had shifted. No more performance, just damage control. The first hour was brutal. Emails, bank statements, hotel receipts. Victor presented everything with surgical precision. I remained silent, calm, controlled. The judge asked questions, sharp ones. Stephanie's team objected. Sustained, overruled. It was routine. Then came the flash drive. Surveillance footage, GPS records. Her voice, laughing on recorded calls. Darren's too. The courtroom stayed dead silent. Stephanie's lawyer fumbled to discredit it. "Circumstantial," he claimed. "Lacks context." Judge Rollins raised an eyebrow. "The context is adultery funded by marital assets. I think the context is quite clear." Then came Darren's deposition. He squirmed. He contradicted himself. The embezzlement charges were mentioned carefully, to avoid defamation, but enough to sink him with his employer. Stephanie visibly flinched when he mentioned Blue Harbor. That was when I saw her crack. A single tear rolled down her cheek. Not regret, recognition that she had lost. But the courtroom wasn't the real battlefield. It was just the beginning. Later, that afternoon, Victor handed me a manila folder. "You need to see this." Inside, Nolan Wexler's network, offshore accounts. A paper trail that looped through foundations, nonprofits, and shell corporations. Stephanie's name was nowhere, but her consulting payments had come from one of Nolan's fronts. Victor stared at me. "This isn't just marital fraud, it's criminal, RICO level. What happens if I go public?" He hesitated. "You won't be able to control it. Once it hits the wire, it's wildfire. Nolan's too connected. He'll fight back. But you'll be protected if you hand it over to the feds instead." Quietly, I sat with that for a long time. I had come for justice. But now, I was sitting on something larger. Corruption, abuse, power games that reached beyond. A failed marriage. Stephanie's betrayal wasn't just personal. It was political. The divorce was finalized in under a month. I kept the house, my firm, my name. She walked away with nothing but her maiden name and a non-disclosure agreement. She signed it in silence. 2 months later, the first indictment dropped. Nolan Wexler was arrested in Washington, D.C., on charges of financial conspiracy, fraud, and racketeering. The Blue Harbor network was dismantled. Several executives were implicated. Stephanie's name never surfaced publicly. I made sure of that, not for her, for me, because I needed the story to end, not with more chaos, but with silence. One morning in March, I walked into my firm's office and found a small package on my desk. No return label. Inside, a silver ribbon, just like the one I'd used that Christmas. And a note: "Truth is the most dangerous gift of all." As I burned it and got back to work, In the end, I wasn't the villain. I wasn't the victim. I was just the man who refused to be played. And when you hand a man like me betrayal wrapped in a red envelope, you better pray he never learns how deep it goes, because once he does, there's single quotes as no court, no silence, and no snowstorm that can stop him.